Hi, I'm Jeffrey, and this is AutoAlchemy, the intersection between typology and self-growth. And I created an objective personality test. Let's unpack that. So first of all, I just want to thank you for tuning into my channel. If you want to support content like this and get early access to my footage, you can check out my Buy Me a Coffee page. Anyway, if you're not familiar with the Objective Personality System, or OPS, here's a quick rundown. Created by these two, OPS is an approach to personality typology that expands upon the foundations created by Carl Jung. While Jung's binary-based model gave us 16 types, OPS adds new constructs that bring that total up to 512. Basically, 32 variants of Jung's 16. OPS strives, often imperfectly, to scientifically define and track personality. The creators, Dave and Shan, claim that they are able to independently arrive at the same 512 type about 90% of the time. And within their data, they've detected really interesting patterns between type twins and type cousins, things like similar physical features, sexual preferences, etc. And for what it's worth, my take is that the Objective Personality System is the approach to typology that comes closest to what Carl Jung was getting at. Just saying. One of the foundational assumptions in OPS is that people can't see themselves clearly, that in fact we often type ourselves upside down. As Jung says regarding classifying people objectively, a man of pronounced sanguine temperament will tell you that at bottom he is deeply melancholic. A choleric that his only fault consists in his having always been too phlegmatic. An ENTP that his only vice was being way too down to earth. I totally made up the last example, please disregard. Not an official quotation. So if this axiom is true, that we can't actually rely upon people's subjective self-reporting, then what can we actually turn to if we're trying to objectively type a person? In OPS, the answer is that we build an argument, binary coin by binary coin, using state changes as our evidence. We look for what comes naturally to a person versus what triggers them, what actually disrupts the homeostatic resting state of the ego and floods it with a bunch of unconscious negativity. Here's an example. If you become uncharacteristically defensive when somebody insinuates that you should behave more appropriately or more ethically, there's a pretty good chance that you're preferring your thinking function above your feeling function. Basically, somebody is perceiving a void within you and they're calling that void out, and for whatever reason, you decide that that information is not legitimate, you don't want to grow there, you refuse to grow there, you don't see the point in growing there. By the way, this approach aligns pretty well with Jung's own ideas about state changes and their connection to typology. If you want more on that, you should check out my video, Complexifying the Functions. Anyway, I released my first OPS-related video back in September of 2018, which means I've been studying this stuff for a long time, and while I've learned a lot, when I crunch the numbers, it's hard not to feel a little disheartened. For my last 80 typing attempts, my average accuracy has been somewhere between 65 and 70%. And maybe I shouldn't kick myself because that's clearly better than chance, but I can't help but wonder, what if there was something better than chance? What if we could completely bypass the human element with all of its heuristics and biases that make it so difficult to type someone properly? As I chewed on that question, I remembered this breadcrumb trail of definitions that Jung lays out in psychological types. A type is a characteristic specimen of a general attitude. An attitude is a readiness of the psyche to act or react in a certain way. Exclusion is implicit in the attitude and happens automatically. The automatic nature is the cause of the one-sidedness. And so the light bulb suddenly turned on for me. All of this talk of attitudes and implicit exclusion and automaticity made me wonder, could you detect OPS type with an implicit association test? So for those who don't know, the IAT is an assessment that attempts to measure attitudes that can't typically be detected through things like self-reporting, which means that it is a possible way to get around the problem of people not seeing themselves clearly, or people deceiving themselves, or people skewing their results in the name of social desirability. The IAT accomplishes this by having the test taker sort words or images into different categories, and it uses reaction time as a way of gauging strength of association between those categories. The classic example is the Harvard IAT that attempts to measure implicit racial bias. While there is controversy surrounding the IAT and how its results should be interpreted, there is also good evidence for its validity and its reliability. In personality psychology, it's even been used to track Big Five traits. So I thought, why not try to apply it to OPS types? Plus, this whole thing is a bit of a poetic throwback to Carl Jung and his origins as a psychiatrist. His early work was actually accomplished using the word association test. And he even derived his hypothesis that there were different psychological types on the basis of those word association tests, which use reaction time latencies to gauge implicit dynamics. In any case, I embarked on a painstaking journey to learn how to create my own IAT, despite the fact that I have next to zero programming experience. While I could bore you with all the details of that creative journey, I think it would be more beneficial for us to look at the beta of AutoAlchemy's OPS test. Alright, so this is the basic interface. Obviously, you start off by typing your name. This is more for data gathering purposes. And then you select which binary coin you want to work on. Anyway, let's do thinking versus feeling. So the idea is that you look at these word lists, you kind of understand how they all hang together, how they cluster together conceptually, what do they have in common, and how do they differ from the opposite side of the coin. But once you're ready, you jump into the test. So that was my test. As you saw there, the test works pretty good at arriving at my personality type. Now that could be because I'm the person who built it, but it's also done pretty well with a small pool of test subjects, and I would like to expand that pool. So the truth is, I need more data, I need some outside triangulation, and my goal is to have 100 officially typed people take my OPS test. I'm trying to get some general feedback about my test, as well as hard data on which of the binary coins my test is tracking most accurately and what areas need to be fine-tuned. As my test is improved, I'll obviously work towards making it accessible to my audience. And maybe I'll even set up some IAT assisted typing sessions if people happen to be interested in that. IDK. Why don't you tell me down in the comments whether that's something you'd like to see? Anyway, that's all I've got for now. Thank you for tuning into AutoAlchemy, and thanks for liking, commenting, and subscribing.